Yep.
Hi everyone. So we are back with another conversation. I have my college friend and best buddy, you can say, Karan. As we discussed in one of our earlier videos, that he's one of the founding product managers slash engineer at Nirvana Insurance. So what I've learned from Karan is that Nirvana has grown almost 10x in the last 1.5 years. I think Karan, you joined what in May 2021, correct? Last year.
Yes. Last year,
So
mate.
definitely little less than 1.5 years. And it has grown 10x in headcount, in valuation, and in a phenomenal growth trajectory. And I think the founder of Nirvana is also an IIT Bombay computer science alum. So must have been a great experience, I'm sure. So Karan, can you talk about your role at Nirvana in a little more detail? What do you do? What does a typical day in your life look like? And how has it evolved in the last 1.5 years?
Got it. Cool. So yeah, Nirvana is like a commercial auto insurance player in the US market. So it's into like insuring trucking fleets that are kind of running in the US market, and like it has been a big industry for a while. It's a kind of 50 plus $1 billion industry.
Wow.
The changes that have come recently is basically in 2018 there was a regulation by which it became compulsory for all these like bigger trucking players to kind of have speedometer, magnetometer, all these devices installed in their kind of GPS installed in their trucks, and all this data needs to be sent to a centralized place where they can be tracked in real time. So that was the change that came in, and all the earlier players were using things like challans that we have in India, like seat belt challan, etc., etc., to kind of underwrite if the drivers of a particular fleet are safe or not. They are driving safely or not, because that's what governs like the accident frequency, right? What's the probability of a crash, etc. So what like we are doing differently is we are doing this more probably. I can say those were the lagging indicators.
Okay.
We are trying to use these leading and real-time indicators to underwrite these players, and that's our kind of advantage. And the additional advantage we are providing is compared to other insurance. So if you think about insurances, I think we all have that kind of like an idea of insurance where like all of our data sits in silos, and they kind of do some funny math with it and give us a number of that's our premium basically, right? If you think about our health insurance or life insurance, we are not sure why we are paying that much amount. Like ideally we should be paying based on our kind of habits, etc. If we are smoking or not smoking, our rates should be different, etc. That's kind of what we think it should be, but you don't know what's going inside, and
Right.
you never get to know what you can do to improve your insurance premiums, right? So what we are doing differently as part of our value add product, which is safety app that I'm working on particularly, we are kind of giving all those insights to these players, like which drivers particularly are causing the maximum dent to their safety standards, if they can kind of make some improvements around these particular things like harsh braking, harsh acceleration, and kind of govern these particular drivers slash vehicles more effectively, gradually their kind of insurance premiums will decrease. So we are providing them a score, which is like kind of Nirvana risk score, which we define, which kind of calculates like how risky a particular fleet is, and we give it to for a whole fleet level, driver level, vehicle level, so that there is a full leaderboard, and it's like fully gamified in that sense. This is your driver who is like the most affecting, so you need to take some action. These are the things that you need to, these are the things that are affecting this driver's quality the most. For example, kind of he's turning very badly, so harsh turns is
Okay.
one of them. So these kind of insights we provide to fleets, and we also give them like what they can do, some of the recommended actions in that sense, like actionable insights, so that they can actually take actions and make progress on those things. So this involves a lot of kind of data crunching. We kind of get like, obviously you can imagine these so let for a single fleet, like generally like a fleet, let's say on an average, our kind of target segment is 20 to 100 fleet size. So you can say average, on an average, let's say a fleet is 50 odd vehicles. So on every each vehicle is driving let's say, I think these are like overutilized in some sense, because like you can supply chain is obviously in crunch of like people, right? Like there's always like demand, penting up demand, and like people want their good faster. So it's kind of like an industry where like the drivers are driving all the time, so we can assume like because of regulation, it's obviously like 10 hours is kind of the limit. So let's say they are driving 10 hours, even like 25 days a month. So 250 hours of driving data that we are getting. So it's a lot of huge amount of data that we need to crunch. We have an in-house data science team that kind of prepares these risk scores that I'm talking about, kind of gives the what is going wrong inside it. And yeah, I mean, that's a lot of data work that we need to do to come up to the insight level, like what is going wrong and what you need to do. It's a lot of geospatial data that we crunch, basically where the things are going wrong. We try to recommend like which locations, which routes are causing the most dent. So that's also some of the interesting problems we are solving at Nirvana. Yeah.
Sure. And that brings to my larger question, which I asked, right? What has been your role in this journey, and how has the role evolved in the last 1.5 years?
So yeah, as I mentioned, I was leading this kind of safety app, which I mentioned is the like kind of value added service product that we provide. So I mean, the role has kind of changed a lot. I was both like leading it from the tech and product side when I started with. Now there's a big team that is working on it. Like not like the whole company, but a small part of the company is totally dedicated to this particular product. So yeah, I mean the role has kind of initially starting with it was only ideating about the product, researching like so because I started this thing from scratch to be honest. Like when I joined, people were working on the insurance domain, but there was no progress on this particular safety app domain. So when I started, it was like from scratch. I wrote the PRD, the first PRD for this one. So we had a competitor product to kind of start with, which is like known as cab, which a bunch of these insurance players kind of use. So my initial days were like really like just looking through cab, what it is, talking to customers, like figuring out like I mean cab is, I'll be honest, like if I can say that, cab is a very like kind of shitty product. It's like so but still like I mean it's getting a huge revenue. So there is the problem that existed already, so we were not kind of the problem was not new, but
Okay.
we were making a new product, obviously like using better tech. And also cap for example takes like for 20 to 30 seconds to load, like for a single fleet, which was like insane for any, like if you think about it, will you wait for 20 to 30 seconds to kind of for a product to load, like just
Not
in
really.
these days? No, right? So like in our product loads in like half a second probably. So that's the biggest, like that's a big difference that kind of all the customers also realize that they are getting. Initially there were a lot of, I mean so as I mentioned, like researching through cab, having customer calls, figuring out how people are using cab right now, what they want it like what they want better out of it, in that sense what more they want, because this is a data product, right? People want to know like if their fleet is doing good, etc., so that they can improve, because it kind of boils down to like how much money they are making. So if they can like operationally safely safety wise anything, if they can improve something, they will do it. So yeah, I mean initially it was that, then obviously the development started, so it was more around leading the team to kind of develop it, ship the product. There were a lot of challenges that we faced around like data quality, because this is like insane amount of data that I mentioned. It's like the GPS data, so there were obviously data quality challenges that we kind of took time, it took its own time to kind of figure out. We had like, there were times when customers were kind of here and there just like messaging us, your data is not wrong, your data is not right. So that was a time I've seen myself, and it was a like kind of a, I would say, critical moment for the product to develop. Now we are in a situation where all the issues have sorted out, people are using it a lot. We are like scaling it here and there. So I mean, yeah, the stage I went from where like figuring TMF, I would say that was major chunk of last year for sure, and like a good amount for this year also, at least first 3 4 months. And then from there, when we kind of figured it's a we have received a decent product market fit, people are using it, we could see that in numbers like in analytics softwares like Mixpanel, etc. Then we kind of figured like more things we can do to increase engagement, etc. So that has been my journey particularly. I think on the other side I can say the insurance product, which I'm not like I have been part of from sideline, but that has like that is the major thing that Nirvana does, right? So that has there we found product market fit very like early on. So there we have kind of we are doing very good in revenue. I think we are hitting 10 million ARR this year.
Wow.
Probably I think hopefully more than that by end of this year. And yeah, I mean that's growing pretty well. So there I'm more involved in the backend side, but over here it was more product side.
So 10 million ARR in 1.5 years of time from zero. That is like hyper growth trajectory, literally.
So actually, it was not even 1.5 year. Like if you think about it, like no insurance company has kind of like even given an insurance in a year of a time. So Nirvana started in January. We started giving insurance in January 2022. January 2021 was incorporation of the company. January 2022 was first insurance, and in 1 year, like it's kind of probably I think we have crossed 10 million. Hopefully, we'll do much more.
Nice. So that is interesting यार, मतलब काफी फास्ट ग्रो करी है कंपनी. सो करण, कैन यू टॉक अबाउट कि एक टिपिकल डे तेरी लाइफ में कैसा रहता है? मतलब लेट्स स्टार्ट विथ नॉट जस्ट द प्रोफेशनल पार्ट बट पर्सनल पार्ट आल्सो. व्हाट टाइम डू यू वेक अप? डू यू वर्क फ्रॉम ऑफिस? डू यू वर्क फ्रॉम होम? Where is your team based? How do you interact with team members? Can you talk about that?
So yeah, that's a good point. I think I missed telling that Nirvana is headquartered in the US. So I'll start with that so that people have context. I think I work out of India.
Okay,
Particularly, it's a remote team. It's a remote friendly team.
right.
We have offices in like San Francisco and Bangalore, but most of the people work out of multiple like places from like San Francisco and Ohio in the US being the top two where people kind of work out of, and it ranges from like in India it ranges from Uttarakhand in north to kind of Bangalore in south, and there are people in Japan. So I mean, yeah,
Wow.
it's a kind of global company that we are talking about. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of communication that needs to be done because it's a remote friendly company. So yeah, my days are kind of dependent on when I sleep. When I wake up is dependent on that, but because I do want to complete 7 to 8 hours of sleep, right? So if I have like late night calls, I sometimes sleep late. So it depends. Like I generally wake up by 11, 10 or 11 at max. Yeah, that's late from standards
Your
of many, but
perspective.
yeah. Yeah, but 10 or 11 is my maximum wake up time. After that, I think if I have generally have some morning meetings, morning catch ups after my morning routine, obviously. And then after that, I think the great part about working in Nirvana is you don't have that many calls in the afternoon, which is when I do all my focus work. Like if I am like sometimes I have to like I do code, so I do all my coding work, and then if I have to research about the product, then I do it that time. So that like that is the peace zone kind of. I can work on like me work in that sense. Don't have to kind of bother on communication. Yeah, deep work exactly. And then in nights it's all like communication with company, with customers, etc. I mean, I think the nightly meetings generally start at 9 p.m. I think as some of you might know, like the daylight savings has started, so it's like 30 minutes late now. So that's a different thing, but yeah, generally 9 p.m. and then it goes up to like 12 p.m. sometimes. I have had days where because I used to attend a lot of customer calls in the initial part of the like discovery phase, and like you don't decide the time, right? Customers decide the time when they want to meet. So I've had days where I used to like have calls till 2 a.m. in the night. Yeah, and that were tiring days, but yeah, I think thankfully now I don't have to do that many because customer is like the product itself is in more stable phase right now.
Right. So, Karan, you mentioned that you collect a lot of data, like 250 uh, days into 10 hours a day per fleet, per truck. So, talk about the technology stack at Nirvana, which is able to handle such a huge amount of data. Obviously, you don't have to share any confidential details, but at a high level, what open source tools you are using, what is it that you guys have built in-house, and most importantly, how has it evolved in the last 1.5 years? Because you guys, when you joined, there was nothing, right? So how did you take such decisions? Let's say you are using whatever, let's say Python. Why choose Python? Can you talk about the stack and why did you arrive at this stack today?
Right. So I think there are three stacks, 3 different data sources, and we are using different stacks for all of them. We kind of, I can start with probably the public data source that is public. I mean, that's like that I mentioned, like challans inspection. That's also a huge data set, because that's like 2 million fleets, and we get data for all of them at a monthly level. That's like monthly level of where the inspection of a fleet happened, was there a challan, etc. So that data we kind of process it in and keep it in Snowflake, which I think, and we for ELT purposes we use like DBT, which is the open source standard these days.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I mean, then kind of for real time using that data in the application, we use RDS, like which is the Postgres of AWS.
AWS,
So I
yeah.
mean, this is yeah. So yeah, we are on AWS. That's yeah
Okay.
there. I think in terms of all these decisions, I would say the major like tech decision kind of taking like the onus goes to kind of Abhay, who is the CTO over here.
Okay.
He had worked in Rubrik, and he was part of like he was heading the data team at Rubrik, so he
Okay.
had seen all that infrastructure, I would say. And yeah, I mean, throughout my journey also, I've been part of huge data sets. Like I started it with Rubrik, where I was part of their like database, like internal database team, which was one of the most coveted team of Rubrik in that sense.
Yeah.
So working there, I got some great experience. Then I did my own startup in alternative data space. So that was also a lot of experience handling like a lot of scraping based data. So I mean, kind of similar technologies I had used earlier. So I mean, it's all experience, right? Once you have used something, you know that works, you just repeat, rinse and repeat kind of a thing. So that was the kind of not we did experiment somewhat with DBT, which was new, but it is an open source standard these days. So yeah, that was also not that big of an experiment. Other than that, for kind of telematics data, which is what I mentioned, like real-time GPS data, etc., we have our in-house pipelines for that, because that's kind of there we like have a lot of third-party kind of integration, because we are getting a bunch of data from these like third-party providers like Samsara, which are basically hardware providers to these fleets, and they have their own dashboards where they collect the data and we get it from them. So it's a lot
Integrate.
of integration where you have to kind of control, like I mean, work within their SLAs, like rate limits, etc., and get the maximum output out of them. So we have kind of not relied on any third-party service over there. We have built our own kind of, because that's kind of our moat in some sense.
Got it.
Like integrating with all these providers, and because there has been no company till now which has been able to do it very effectively, which we can use, because the thing itself is new. It started in 2018. So yeah, that's the reason. And we store all this data in S3, kind of process it, and there itself. Yeah, because it's a huge chunk of data, and it's kind of somewhat unorganized, and we organize it and put it in then like our own RDS database.
Got it. Got it. So, Karan, I mean, you talked about a lot of technology stuff, a lot of problem statements internally, and the solutions that you're using. So, apart from the usual on-the-job training, what else do you do to keep yourself updated with what is happening in the market, learning new tools and technologies? What are some of the blogs that you read, some people you follow? Can you talk about that?
That's a good question. Let me. Uh, I mean, I would say I think Twitter is something that I kind of read like on my kind of free time, during my free time. So I
Okay.
follow a bunch of good folks in startup ecosystem there. I mean, one of them is you for sure. um, and I love your content. So yeah, other than that, I mean, like I'm forgetting some of the name, but I might be pronouncing it wrong, but Lenin Retsky is one of the good product manager. Then there's, I think, Shreyas, who is famous for his product tweets.
Shreyas Doshi.
Uh, yeah, Shreyas Doshi, exactly.
Right.
Then I follow a bunch of newsletters for kind of keeping updated on what's going on, recent technologies. I follow Ackler's blog, Daniel Ackler. I do follow A16Z, like the future.com that they have created,
Right. That is
their newsletters. Yeah, and I do listen to a bunch of podcasts. I mean, A16Z podcast is one of them, Tech Village. I might be forgetting a bunch of names, to be honest, because it's on this spot. But yeah, I think one of my favorite ones is My First Million, by I think Sampar and Sean Paris. So yeah, I think that's also the recent one I have really started liking. Mm, yeah, I mean, other than that, I think just kind of talking to friends is another medium, like the way we are talking, right? We generally talk this way, kind of what's going on with my job, what I am doing, what you're doing. So I think that's that I feel, I think in-person conversations that we have, I think that's the best learning mode, because there I can easily ask questions, I can get clarifications. And yeah, I mean, I think I prefer those over all the others, but you don't get enough time of all the people you have there. So that's
So I think one good thing about our network is that everybody is a techie in our network, right? मतलब computer science, IIT
correct.
Bombay, तो सारे अपने फ्रेंड सर्कल में जनता सब लोग टेक्निकल लोग ही हैं. So that is quite good. So uh, I mean, this was like a very interesting conversation so far. I had one last question to ask you. So your journey, as we all see, that it started in technology domain and gradually you are moving towards product. While your current role is a mix of both, but I think it is moving towards product. So what advice do you have for engineers who are aspiring product managers who want to get into product? Any tips, anything? I mean, I know it's also an open-ended question, but anything which you feel that you did right, which helped you transition to this role, if you can share that.
So yeah, I mean, I think the so let me first kind of differentiate between the two roles in that sense. Like engineer, like as an engineer, you work on how of a problem statement, right? Like how you get this thing done, right?
Right,
How you want to kind of what is the tech solution, tech choices that you make, like which is the better one in that sense, which will scale faster, which will scale to a like the scale you want it to be.
right,
Um, but yeah, what I was mentioning is you may like focus on the solutioning part of the problem statement, like how you it needs to be implemented. On the other hand, like in the product, it's more about like why part of this problem, like so why, like what's the firstly the problem statement, carving that out, why that problem exists, like why you need to do this, what
right,
is the priority of like doing this versus this. So, I mean, that's the difference in the two roles that I have like realized. There is no like the reason I moved, let's say, from engineer to product was I wanted to know the why. I mean, I have been curious throughout my life in that sense. So knowing the why of doing instead of how, so that was my reason. And I think compared to other domains, it's kind of easier to move from tech to product. I have seen, like in my journey, I've seen people moving from business analyst to product, multiple other things to product, I would say. But the best part about moving from tech to product is basically product in most of the companies is a bridge between business problem and tech solution, right?
right.
So, like as an engineer who moves from tech to product, you're definitely clear about the tech solutioning part. Like you have to be a good engineer for sure for to be on that journey. But if let's say you are, then you know the tech side of it. So once you start reading about and business problem, like is not. I mean, we all are born with like problems, right? We have been solving problems since our childhood, so we have that kind of
Knack.
like gut or whatever. Yeah, to solve the see it and like to figure problems and solve it. So I mean, it's just kind of subconsciously we do it. Product is all about bringing into kind of consciously thinking about these things, etc. So I mean, that is doable. So because you have the tech like knowledge, it's easier to kind of convert business problem to tech. So I mean, doing it is kind of to start with, you just need to be taking whatever you're working on as an engineer, take the ownership of that, like sit with PM, figure out decisions that he's making, probably contribute to those decisions wherever you can, sit
Right.
in the product calls, sit like talk to like, I mean, the one thing that I feel like I could have done even faster was like talking to a lot of customers for support issues they are facing, which were on the features that I developed that like that gives you a lot of understanding about how you want to change the feature that you have built, example, as an engineer, what more you need to do. I think, yeah, doing that, and then kind of, yeah, that role kind of increasing
Yeah.
your role from doing it for a feature level, then you move it to a product level, then probably even better, like bigger. I think that's a journey that I'm also kind of living through. So yeah.
Right. No, I think you mentioned an important part, talking to customers on customer support, on sales calls, just sitting with them helps
Right.
get answers to a lot of why questions, because you know that customers want it. And then further questioning the customers will help you uncover the problem statement that they are trying to solve, for which they have asked a specific feature. And then you
Right.
use your brains and your experience to give them alternate solutions. So at Cogno
Exactly.
also, I've seen many times customer will tell a feature to implement. We go and ask them, why do you want this? And then they explain the problem, and then we suggest a better solution. I think once
Right.
engineers learn to start doing this, learn to start thinking this way, they can graduate towards becoming a product manager, right? And same way, a product manager can start graduating towards someone on the business side. And in
Right.
fact, being an engineer gives you an unfair advantage also, I feel, because it's easier to become a product manager being an engineer than the other way around. If you're a product manager, going back to engineering is tougher. So
Right.
I think engineering is at the top in some ways, where multiple roles can spin out of it. With myself getting into sales now.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's quite an interesting journey, Karan. So अपने और भी conversations इस type के करते हैं. Let's keep on chatting.
Right.
Would love to have further conversations about your rubric journey and the journey at IIT Bombay. In fact, both of us can have a candid call on यार IIT Bombay में हमने क्या किया. Like we did a lot of things
Right.
together. In terms of
Right.
courses, academics, projects. So we can have a session someday. So to the audience, I hope you found this helpful. Uh, we will be recording more such conversations on product management, engineering, business, entrepreneurship, jobs, career, general topics where basically we are sharing our own journey. So please, in the comment box below, please do share other ideas which will help Karan and me create more content. That's it. Thank you so much, everyone. Looking forward to interacting with you in the next video.